First and foremost, if I'm AI, explain this to me.
Just wait at one. Just choose one and wait.
I feel like it's avoiding this square for a reason. Let's go this square. What the?
Exactly. Now, anyways, Lynae will be our first special character in the game in 8 months, and with her comes a brand new break mechanic. Lynae serves to be the game's introduction to Toon Break, similar to how Phoebe was our first negative status focused character. While there isn't any character that specifically relies on Toon Break as their main source of damage, just like how Zani and Phoebe uses negative statuses, Lynae is a great investment for future teams while providing immediate benefits for the roster you already own. In case you aren't aware, Wuthering Waves announced that for the launch of 3.0, they will be adding the new off-toon mechanic, which will be added to all the characters in the game, including the ones released before 3.0. How it works is simple. When you attack an enemy using your on-field resonator, the enemy's off-toon level will increase. When the level reaches its maximum, the enemy will enter mistoon state. Once in that state, elite enemies and bosses will have an indicator on them, allowing you to do flashy finisher moves called a toon break. This deals massive damage on the enemy and resetting their off-toon level to 0. If the enemy isn't dead by this point, their off-toon level will enter a cooldown period where it can't be raised by any attacks for a bit before ending its cooldown and allowing you to repeat the process. Note that the off-toon mechanics does not replace the previous stagger system, but works along with it. Once an elite or boss enemy has been hit with a toon break, certain resonators will be able to inflict 1 or 2 forms of shifting onto the enemy. Both cannot exist at the same time, and the more recent one will overtake the previous. Certain resonators will apply the toon rupture shifting effect onto enemies, while others will apply toon strain shifting. As of now, Lynae is the only resonator that is able to apply one or the other depending on which mode you select for her in her skill screen. When an enemy is inflicted with 1 or 2 forms of shifting and is hit with toon break, they will go into interfered mode. It's essentially part 2 of the shifting effect. So, to summarize, deal damage to enemies to increase their off-toon level. Once the off-toon level is full, use toon break for extra damage. If the enemy was hit with a toon break from a resonator that deals toon rupture damage, all other resonators on the team that deal toon rupture damage will gain a special attack. If the enemy was hit with a toon break from a resonator that deals toon strain damage, all resonators on the team that deal toon strain damage will get a damage buff for a short amount of time, with this buff increasing the more toon strain characters that are on the team. Forte Circuit and Basic Attack. We can start taking a look at Lynae's kit. By default, she will be in the optical sampling state, and with certain requirements met, she will be able to enter the kaleidoscopic parade state, which enhances her moveset to be much more powerful. Lynae's entire kit centers around the effect of her Forte Circuit, basic attack damage, and entering kaleidoscopic parade as soon as you can to get the most out of her abilities. In order to swap between her forms, Lynae will need to build up Overflow and Lumiflow. While in optical sampling state, Lynae's basic attack, resonance skill, plunge attack, and dodge counter all recover overflow. And while in the kaleidoscopic parade state, her enhanced basic attack, enhanced heavy attack, enhanced mid-air attack, enhanced resonance skill, dodge, and intro skill will all recover Lumiflow. Lumiflow also increases by 20% per second when Lynae is simply moving while in the kaleidoscopic parade state. Also, while in the kaleidoscopic parade state, Lynae's movement will be upgraded. Her walk and sprint will have her riding around on her roller skates, and jumping will become an attack, where she performs Polychrome Leap and attack 3 times, gaining 1 stack of True Color for every jump attack. Once she hits 3 stacks of True Color, her next mid-air attack will grant the team 40 points of break boost for 30 seconds. Resonance Skill. Her resonance skill does spectral damage. While in the kaleidoscopic parade state, if you press her resonance skill, it does an enhanced attack and deals more damage, but if you hold her resonance skill, it sends her back to the optical sampling stage and jumpstarts her basic attack chain. Resonance Liberation. Lynae's Resonance Liberation will deal spectral damage to all enemies within its radius and will grant all allies a 24% all attribute damage buff for 30 seconds, as well as enhancing her next basic attack. Inherit Skills. Lynae will gain 12% attack and 8% crit rate for her inherit stat bonuses. The first inherit skill, Colors Never Fade, will have Lynae leaving spray paint when she uses her jump attacks while in the kaleidoscopic parade state. Enemies affected by spray paint will be afflicted by polychromic flux. This makes it so that they are essentially impacted by tune rupture shifting or tune strain shifting depending on which one Lynae is attuned to before combat. It also increases the motorbike's energy tank while Lynae is in the team. The second inherit skill, Adaptive Optics, Everyday's Operation, increases Lynae's spectral damage for a short period of time after using her intro skill. If she's in the kaleidoscopic parade state and not in combat, Lynae can dodge in any direction to gain the optic camo effect. As long as she doesn't attack, interact with anything, or get swapped off, Lynae will be essentially invisible to enemies, being able to get in nice and close for some cute selfies. Intro and Outro Skills. Her intro skill adds polychromic flux to enemies and increase overflow by 100. Lynae's outro skill, on the other hand, will deal spectral damage to enemies and gives the next on-field resonator 15% all-type damage bonus and 25% resonance liberation damage bonus for 14 seconds or until they are swapped off. This will be our first liberation buffing outro skill since Changli, all the way back in 1.1. Leveling Priority. When it comes to leveling her talents, prioritize her Forte Circuit, following her basic attacks and Resonance Liberation. Lynae's Resonance skill and Intro skill should be leveled somewhat, but are negligible in her damage and abilities, so you shouldn't worry too much about them. Spectrum Disaster. On top of being the cutest weapon in the game, is Lynae's best in slot weapon, seeing as it's made specifically for her. It gives her 24.3% crit rate and max level, increases her basic attack damage, and increases the damage of all allies up to 24% by simply inflicting tune rupture or strain shifting during her basic attacks. If you decide to skip out on her weapon, worry not, because the new standard weapon, Insight Bearer, works perfectly for Lynae. Although it gives crit damage instead of crit rate, the effect boosts Lynae's tune break damage, which is something she will utilize quite a lot. Static Mist, the first standard weapon, doesn't boost Lynae's damage by much, but gives her crit rate and better energy regeneration for her liberation, as well as increasing the damage of your next resonator to swap. Chakona's signature and the Battle Pass weapon Solar Flame are good stat sticks for crit rate, with Carlotta and Galbrena's signature being good crit damage weapons if you have nothing else. With the arrival of Lynae Roy, Kuro answered our Christmas wishes and finally gave us traditional Tacet Field to farm. Pact of Neon Light Leap and Rite of Gilded Revelation are two spectral sets that Lynae can hold depending on how you want to build her. Neon Light Leap acts as a sub-DPS set, increasing Lynae's spectral damage and increasing the attack of the next resonator to swap in. The amount of attack she gives scales with her break boost, capping out at 15% attack boost when she reaches 50 points of break boost. The right set is more damage oriented, increasing her spectral damage up to 40% by dealing basic attack damage. Popping her liberation stacks another 40% on top of that for a total of 80% spectral damage bonus. Moonlit Clouds is a good placeholder set until you can farm a good Neon Light Leap set for her sub DPS build. Ultimately, it is up to you and what team you place her in, but regardless, Lynae would still build the standard 4-3-3-1-1 with a crit damage forecast if she has a crit rate weapon, or crit rate forecast if she has a crit damage weapon, spectral or attack 3 cost, and attack 1 cost. If you run Pact, use Hyvatia as your equipped echo for stronger buffs, and if you decide to use Rite, then Twin Nova Nebulous Cannon will be your preferred equipped echo for stronger personal damage. When it comes to her sequence nodes, she has a few key ones that really amplify her abilities. Lynae's S1 increases the multiplier of her jump attack, Polychrome Leap, by 120%, as well as increasing the uptime of spray paint by 100%. She also gains interruption and resistance while in her enhanced basic attack strings, and restores 120 overflow while out of combat for 2 seconds. Lynae's S2 is much more simple and powerful. She gains a permanent 25% all damage amplification, and her outro skill passes the buff onto the next resonator for 14 seconds or until they're swapped off. Lynae's Sequence 3 further increases the damage multipliers of her enhanced basic attacks, as well as giving her a stack of Permixed Hue once a second up to 25 stacks when her Lumi Flow is at or above 120. Each stack of Permixed Hue increases the damage of her enhanced resonance skill by 55%. Casting the skill uses all the stacks built up. Her Sequence 4 and 5 are simple, giving her 20% attack and increasing the multiplier of her Liberation by 70%, respectively. For Lynae's final sequence node, casting her enhanced heavy attack on the ground or in the air will give her 1 stack of Color of Soul for a max of 3 stacks. Each stack will increase her damage of her jump attacks by 30% for a maximum of 90% with the stacks resetting once the attack chain is over. She also becomes immune to all interruptions and get 30% damage resistance while casting her mid-air heavy attack. Casting her outro skill will not remove her from her kaleidoscopic parade stage. Her maximum limit of Lumi Flow goes from 120 to 360. And casting her intro skill in the kaleidoscopic parade state will increase it by 120. Hitting her 360 Lumi Flow also makes her skate faster. Lynae is a versatile sub-DPS who excels at boosting resonance liberation and all attribute damage, making her an ideal partner for units like Shangli Yao, Kalcharo, or Yuno. While the game currently lacks a perfect team to exploit her tune break specialty, she remains a high-value, flexible pick for any player. Her ability to slot in almost any composition ensures she's a strong investment now with her massive stellar potential as the off-tune mechanic evolves. Lynae proves to be a top-tier endgame contender, successfully clearing Hazard Tower at max crest and achieving SSS scores in Whimpering Waste. She offers incredibly smooth rotations as a sub-DPS for Shangli Yao, Yuno, and Augusta, even matching the performance of premium meta teams. While she is a flexible replacement in Lupa or Fusion teams and a solid alternative to Shorekeeper, her standout strength lies in her personal damage and her team-wide buffs that ensures clears across all high-level content. Lynae seems to be the best pull value for this patch, but until we know what Mornier does, we can't afford to say that for certain. Her flexibility on almost any teams with great buffs and even greater buffs for liberation damage teams, high amounts of buffs, great exploration, fun personality, and great future investment in off-tune teams makes her an amazing character to pick up and start playing with. If you had to choose between picking up her S1 or R1, I would go for her first sequence node. Her signature weapon is good, but the power difference between it and a standard weapon is not much different, while her sequence nodes provide her with much better damage and utility. New players can also pick her up as her versatility and personal damage will be enough to carry them all the way to endgame. Hopefully, this gave you the gist of how Lynae works and her overall performance. If you found this guide helpful, feel free to stick around for more wuwa and other guide content. I'm Rue, and I'll see you next time.